Hello and welcome to another session at Bizaji Catalyst 2020. My name's Claire Vanner. I'm the Content Marketing Manager at Bizaji and I'm going to be your host for some of the sessions throughout the event. So up now we have a session being hosted by Tom Spolar and Tyler Rudkin of HSA Bank. So let me hand over to them and they can tell you all about how they have been using process automation within their organization.
Thanks, Claire. We appreciate it and appreciate the opportunity to share what we have learned in our journey. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the presentation. We will go ahead and get started. So first of all, I want to just point out that there's going to be a theme running through this presentation. As the Director of Continuous Improvement, I like to tell people I'm the subject matter expert of nothing, but rather a process consultant. I'm not an IT person. I don't have an IT background. That's where Tyler comes in. So Tyler's our SVP and solution architect. While he has a strong IT background, Tyler is a solution architect, which is all solutions, not just IT. So we have a strong partnership as we approached our implementation of Bizaji and IBPM. And really, this is the focus of our presentation, is to make sure that you are marrying the business aspect and partnering with those people all along the way. When I came onto the organization, and for most organizations, when you ask people to tell you about their process, these are the kind of answers we often get. We hear a lot of things like, I think, or they're quick to say it needs more people. We hear words like it might, I'm not sure, I've been told. Sometimes they say, I'll send you a Visio from 2017, which we know is outdated. But the really behind this is that people really never know what's actually happening in their process. They think they know, but we've learned that these are some continuous improvement warning words, as I call them, is when people start to say, I think, or as far as I know, it's a clue that we really haven't done the due diligence to understand what our current state is. W. Edwards Deming is known as really the father of quality. He's a legend in the Lean Six Sigma and quality circles. And he has a couple really fantastic quotes. The first one, in God we trust, all others bring data. Or in other words, to say that is, without data, you're just another person with an opinion. And I really believe very strongly in that. And as Tyler and I go through this presentation, this is what we're going to focus on, the importance of understanding the current state. Not what people think is happening, not what people think should be happening, but taking the time to understand what's happening today so you can make the best decisions. And we're going to talk about how Bizaji helps us do that. So I'll kick it over
Thanks,
to Tyler.
Tom. Thank you, Tom. So the first question that we'd like to talk about is why Bizaji? Why did we pursue Bizaji? And our reasons were pretty straightforward and simple, and I think our success is due to that simplicity. All BPA contributors at HSA Bank share a common goal of the correct process with speed following. So do it right, then do it fast is kind of the logo that we've maintained. We start that by doing it right. And doing it right, as Tom mentioned, is really fully understanding how processes are completed today. And as Tom mentioned, it's not just technology processes, but human processes as well. So we thoroughly discover and investigate those to see what people are doing and why. And really what the why that the yield of the why is what we call outcomes. These are the outcomes everyone's trying to achieve. There are often many ways to achieve those. So very carefully understanding how they're achieved today. What of that is critical? What of that is perhaps neutral, meaning it doesn't have positive or negative effect? And what of that is waste, meaning it does not utilize our people's time or our resources very well. We break that work down to simplify tasks and have clarity on what we're doing. And the work breakdown is a common practice in software development, but we find it very important in process development as well, because we strive for very granular processes, which we'll talk about again in another slide. We place a high value on the ability to simulate a process and validate paths. In software development, you do sometimes what is called pseudocoding, and you'll sketch out what the program might do, and then walk non-technical contributors through that to say, okay, at this point here, there's a decision, and we could go left or we could go right, and you get validation and feedback from people before you invest the effort in building it. And we perform the same thing with our processes. When we were searching for our business process automation platform, we placed a high-weighted value on simulation, and while we do use it, we intend to use it even more. We also have a very strong belief that requirements and implementation should be inseparable. You can say it either way, but we would say the code is the process and the process is the code. This serves for long-standing self-documentation, no more outdated Visios from 2017, as Tom mentioned, because the BPMN modeling and design of our processes are self-descriptive, and they're accessible to non-technical skill sets. And then, kind of redundantly stating that we ensure that we do it right before we do it fast. Again, that was our motto going into it. And this really played out with our choice between pursuing business process automation and robotics and RPA. And what we saw were many organizations choosing to automate the processes that they already had. And we anticipated that that would perhaps yield the same ratio, if not exponential ratio, of errors and waste and fallout. So we consciously chose to invest in being very critical of our processes and getting them working exactly the way that we thought they should, and then speed them up. And I think we've been very happy with that. How do we deliver business process? In software development, there's an acronym SDLC, Software Development Lifecycle. And so I've nicknamed this the BDLC, the Business Process Delivery Lifecycle. And while it's similar in many ways, business process is a bit different. Capturing the current state, as we mentioned before, conducting the disciplined discovery of our complete business process, of pain points and waste, regardless of what we think they should do, really just reiterating what Tom said, regardless of what we think they do, regardless of how important we think they are, we take the most objective look that we can at them. And for BPA, we capture those in Modeler. Business process markup notation is a very powerful tool that everyone can collaborate around. And it's very straightforward to truth test, interrogate it, question it, look for dead ends, look for loose ends. And so that's where we start. And then once we've captured the process, and this is a process that Tom's organization walks teams through. We used to walk through them on walls and walls of paper with Post-its, which was very effective, but now we can do it electronically. And I feel better for Tom's team that he doesn't have to roll up giant blocks of paper and go back and recapture them. We're capturing them as we discuss them. So the definitions for success are the outcomes I mentioned earlier. What are the objective outcomes that we value from this process? Differentiate those from tradition, from requirements as they were written, perhaps, and measure things like how long does it take? Have success criteria. Have we achieved the outcome or not in the form of a requirement? Who conducts this activity? Who should conduct this activity in terms of job roles, job skill sets? And then as we define those measurements of success, it's important that we actually measure them. How long did this take? Did the right person get the assignment? If they are unavailable, do we have a pool of other people that are very qualified to receive this work? That's a refinement in Modeler. We go into Modeler and refine that work until it really does reflect the target state. Once we have the target state constructed, building it in Studio and automating it is the next job. And really that is just a matter of taking all the good work that we've done and hitting what I like to think of as the go button. It's very important for this target state that before we deploy it, we have already gained the buy-in of our stakeholders through participation in design and continuous feedback. These stakeholders always include the people running the process, but often include tangent ancillary groups that are affected or impacted by these processes as well. We're very careful not to leave any assumptions on the table that this process change only affects this immediate group who works it. Often there are impacts to your neighbors as well. So by the time we build in Studio, we have had participation and buy-in from the people who will work the process. Most importantly, the people who conducted their jobs as the old process. We like to eliminate the fear, support them to be more successful, and that's how we gain buy-in.
Truth be told, Tyler, I missed my Post-it notes and rolls of paper on the wall, because that often the secret of success is just getting everyone in the same room to talk about what they do. But really, Modelers enabled us to do that virtually a little more effectively. And I think a huge value of Modeler is that it creates a standard across the organization. Everybody's modeling the same way, and we would like to move toward that being our default process modeling, whether or not we're automating further in Studio or not.
Absolutely agree. It's a great tool. So in order to do this, we had to set some governance. And by governance, we mean some ground rules for how we use Bizaji. The great thing about technologies like Bizaji is that the answer to can we do that in there is probably yes. The more critical question to answer is, should we do that in there? And that's where the experience and judgment and foresight come in. So some ground rules, and these are the governing principles that we use to develop processes, and we will be expanding this to other parts of the organization. So we'll continue to refine this. But I think one thing that's important is not to get too specific. We don't want to tell people exactly how to build a process. There's not a particular style of business process flow that's preferred, but there certainly are some things that are risks that we like to avoid. So what we do is prioritize the orchestration of human workforce with each other, with person to person, and with technology. So simple statement, but essentially this rule right there says we don't use this as an enterprise service bus to orchestrate back-end software. We have another platform for that, and so that's the first test we need to look at. Are we organizing software to software orchestration? If so, it really shouldn't be deployed in Bizaji, because that's not what this is primarily for in our organization. Business-centric goals. The outcome should be always a very measurable business-centric goal, not cleaning up email servers or anything like that. We do use forms and heavily use source and target data sets integrated into Bizaji. What's important there is that and I'll get to that in the don'ts, is that we don't embed our critical business data in Bizaji, but rather pass the critical data through Bizaji. We build workflow logic and routing. That's the BPMN we talk about so much. Again, the self-documenting BPMN. The nice thing about coding in Bizaji is that we really don't need to produce a lot of documentation, because, as I mentioned before, the code is self-documenting. Sub-processes and fine-grained tasks. This is probably one of our biggest focuses is to not build large, monolithic, complicated processes, but instead take the work breakdown structure to a very fine-grained degree so that we have very, very simple tasks. If you look at complex business processes and break them down far enough, everything that's conducted in there should be very simple, and it should be very straightforward to know if you've done it or not and how long it took. So this really facilitates measurement. This facilitates reuse of fine-grained tasks that are applicable to many business processes. This also facilitates quality. One change to one simple thing, it's very easy to test and anticipate its impact, trace all the places that it's used. Touching a very complex house of cards often results in disaster. We observe those process metrics. We build things to be measured. So as we're developing, as we're testing, we should be able to measure them. And then we iterate. The iteration is a really important part of engaging our stakeholders as well, because building a gold-plated, beautiful process that people don't understand is hard to get buy-in on. But if you take them along for the journey, we build very simple things, and we build up, and we build up, and we build up. People understand very well what they're working with and how it was built. So some guidelines that we drew very early of what we do not do when we're delivering business process automation, or what we would call anti-patterns, primarily for the purpose of reducing complexity and risk. I mentioned before, no monoliths. You will not find one gargantuan process in our systems that is not composed of many sub-processes and many tasks. We really favor having many tasks and many sub-processes, being able to work on them, maintain them, and reuse them across our platform. We avoid complex technical implementations, and this can be either in Bizaji or even outside of Bizaji. But for example, Bizaji will give us the ability to extend its capabilities with lots of other code bases. We keep it very simple. If we need something, we build an API for it or a service endpoint in our organization, and Bizaji calls it. If we need to integrate, we use one of the many plugins available to Salesforce or any other platform, but we don't do any complex wiring. We like to keep this as stock as possible. No deployment of source code. Again, a very powerful tool. We could put Java or .NET code inside of Bizaji. I like to think of those as extending the platform to do all the very nuanced and complex things that perhaps the Bizaji code set does not allow you to do. Again, those things do not live here. They can, but for us, they should not. We put those, again, on an enterprise service bus, and we invoke them as we need them. A very clear handshake and contract between Bizaji and source code, between Bizaji and complex technical implementations that live elsewhere. And then last, but also very important, no persistence of business data. There's some great content management data stores and other data stores. Our business data, our actual critical system of record data should never live here. The only system of record data that really does live in Bizaji are performance metrics, the measurements of how long the tasks took. I refer to those as metadata about the business process. So customer information does not change in Bizaji. If it needs to change, it goes back to an authoritative system of record to change and then is reintroduced to the process. These critical rules set up boundaries and create consistent outputs with our business process automation. And we've been very productive with it. And I think also our maintenance and defects have been very low because of these practices. The business process center of excellence. So after we laid those ground rules and we realized that the business process automation capabilities of Bizaji would very well meet the needs of automating and implementing the target processes that Tom's organization helps our teams form, we needed to structure a team. So this is the band. And last year at Catalyst in Miami, several of these folks attended. If this were an in-person conference, they would be there, and they are attending virtually this week as well. So this is not only our roster for success, but the pattern that we would use to scale additional teams across our broader organization, that being our parent organization and the other lines of business there. So our platform lead is Greg. Greg is an enterprise architect, former software developer and data architect with lots of skills in building this stuff. And so without getting into the complex code or source code, Greg guides the agile platform development best practices. Those rules that were set before, Greg and I have over 20 years of delivering software in that manner together. Our continuous improvement lead, a very important role, Nicole L. And the L is only there because we have another Nicole on our team. Nicole is part of Tom's organization. She's a Lean Six Sigma black belt. And Nicole leads process discovery and prioritizes the process backlog. In an agile world, we think of Nicole as a product owner. The products being the business processes that our operations and operations teams consume. Nicole is essentially that product owner. She optimizes the value for a minimum viable product, as you would call it in Agile, what meets the needs of the business and where can we start, and then what are the nice to haves that we layer on top of it. Very important relationship between the delivery team and the backlog creation. Our business process automation tech lead, Sally. Sally is not a programmer. Sally was always a quality analyst, a business analyst with a very strong systems analyst acumen. A lot of times business analysts may know the industry or they know systems. You'll always find that bias. Sally has a very systems mindset. And so that was a perfect fit for her to work in Bizaji and give her the palette of tools that Bizaji provides to translate these process epics into stories that can be tasked out, process flows, and deployment strategies. And Sally partners with Nicole H. and Nicole is our process analyst. Nicole comes from an operations background. She has a very strong understanding of business process, banking operations, and we find that that subject matter expertise is harder to groom than skill sets in tools like Bizaji, because Bizaji is very intuitive and very approachable. So she's had a great deal of success, as the rest of the team has, in implementing and testing tasks, process flows, and integrations to data and other applications, and then deployments. Deployment strategies become a big part of this team's practice. So this team of 4 is a blueprint or a template that we would use to replicate success in other business lines of the organization, and they have certainly taken the lead and done a great job with this.
And Tyler alluded to it, but when we added Nicole H to the team, both Nicoles actually, that business knowledge and understanding of the processes is very hard to replicate. And we are looking more for a mindset than a skill set. We need people who have a kind of a view of process, and they understand how to look for waste in the process. If we have that, teaching the technical skills and working in Bizaji and Modeler is a natural fit, and it's a great platform for that. So it's worked well for us, and as we look forward, having that business understanding and connecting the business, the process with the technical side is really an important focus to have for us. I wanted to talk about now some of those process metrics and understanding the current state and what implementation in Bizaji has allowed us to do. This is an example of the first process we implemented. And the chart on the top of the case duration you can see is a not normal distribution. There's something going on here. It's spread all over the place. The duration, spans from 0 to more than 14 days. But we were able to use this data to then go back and work with the team and talk about it. We talked about case duration or total lead time for many, many months or years without a lot of success. But when we were able to show it and understand the current state and work with the team, we were able to make quick adjustments, not just to the process in Bizaji, but the way people are working and how they are pulling work through the process so it doesn't sit too long in one place. And very quickly in a 2-month period, we went from the top to the bottom, where we have a fantastic normal distribution with an average 2-day case duration. And we literally went from weeks to days just by being able to talk about the data, show it, and make adjustments both from a technical side, but more importantly from a manual and process side. And that is one, these lean concepts and lean principles really help us get better at what we do, while Bizaji and business process management enable it. Some of those concepts we do not stray from and really like to continue to focus on are, first one is quality. We have an automatic allocation of quality monitoring cases, so we can continue to measure defects per million, whether it be units or opportunities. Quality doesn't go away. We want to make sure that we're continuing to focus on it. And we've created a reusable process for all implementations we do in the future that will continue to kick over to our quality monitoring step. Level loading is a really important concept that helps us pull the work and have a view of production flow. We want to make sure that we have people allocated and we do the math so we have the right amount of people and the right number of tasks so that work flows throughout the process without sitting, and we can get as efficient as possible. Inventory in my training was considered the mother of all waste, because anything sitting in inventory where nothing's being done to it, waiting to be worked, is wasteful. It's just sitting there and it's not creating any value. We were able to create steps in Bizaji that help us monitor the inventory. How long is something sitting before it's worked? And we very quickly realized that the opportunity was not in average handle time or touch time, but instead was in sitting time or inventory, where we're waiting for the process and the case to move forward. NIGO, or not in good order, is something we deal with all the time. We get work from customers and it's not in a state that we can do anything with because there are problems or errors. We're able to focus now more proactively on NIGO work and look at what we can do to prevent it. In one of our processes, we were very quick to identify through the frequent paths feature that 47% of the work that came into a process was not in good order. We couldn't do anything with it. That means it goes back to the customer. We have to redo it, and creates a lot of waste within the process. Objectively being able to quantify how much NIGO there is a very valuable tool for us to improve. And lastly, and this is something that I'm very vocal about and feel very strongly, Bizagi and business process management really allows us to have much better auditability. We can show, because the process that we map out is the process, never outdated, we can always have a 100% accurate view of our current process. We can look at all of the controls that are within that process. We can monitor any case or any activity within that case and have full transparency and auditability that is always up to date, which is a huge value in the organization. So Tyler, why don't you tell us about some of the accomplishments we've had so far?
Absolutely. So the team I mentioned before has followed these guidelines that we talked about, focused on the goals of business outcome. And since standing up our first Bizagi instance, we have now deployed 15 automated processes. And, we like to say that our first process was actually consisted of, I think, Tom, it was 15 or 16 sub-processes. It was a very complex process. We tackle processes by pain that they cause or friction that they cause in the business. And the first one was complex. And so that's one of many that we've delivered. The backlog continues to turn into production deployments, which is really exciting. The reusable components and capabilities that we mentioned now exceed 50, and they're growing every day. The team has done a great job of identifying a problem that they need to solve, not only in this one delivery, but that they will very likely or definitely need to solve in many deliveries. Things like task handle time, form integration, deployment automation, to name a few. These are all things that we built capabilities around, and we go back to that catalog to reuse in future development. Speeds up development, increases quality, and keeps it a lot easier to maintain. Transparent, agile backlog. The team has done an awesome job of what we call visual management. Tom's organization leads a concept of visual management where we're telling our story through data. It's accessible, and we walk through it. We have a backlog. We have a very predictable story point-based velocity of delivering these processes. So we have a very good view as to where we'll be in the near future. If we were to make changes, prioritize one process over another, what that might look like. In 2019, this organization, and Greg in particular, was awarded the 2019 CEO Award. And that was not from our CEO at HSA Bank, but the parent company CEO, because of the impact that this process and this team has been able to have on our organization in terms of operational efficiency, savings, and maturity. And this is one of the top priorities of an enterprise initiative to create optimal performance across the entire corporation, which is really exciting. We're really proud of that. As I mentioned, 2021 expansion of the COE, we will replicate and spread this pattern of behavior and success throughout our parent organization. Several business lines are very hungry for it. One thing that we hear at our own organization that we warn others about, and this is probably Tom's favorite thing to hear, is we want more Bizagi, right? So everyone wants more Bizagi. And so we're working right now on scaling teams by having more of them, more concurrent work occurring on Bizagi.
And so really, if we had to give one point, this is kind of a motto in continuous improvement in our organization: don't let perfect get in the way of better. Bizagi really enables you to get started, map a process out, learn from the data. Once you have it within the system, have it documented, can start to pull the data, you can learn from it. What are we learning from the data? And then you can leverage the team, go back, ask them, how can we make this better, so you can continually improve. And without that connection between the development team, the business owners, and the people who are doing the work, you're going to struggle. And it's really important to build that connection. It's hard to over communicate, but plan, do, check, and act is very common within the Lean Six Sigma world, and it fits very well within our process. Don't let perfect get in the way. Better get started, learn from it, leverage the team, and continually improve. So that wraps it up. I don't know if we have any time for questions, Claire?
Well, unfortunately, that's all we've got time for, but thank you so much. It's been really insightful and some really useful key takeaways there. Plus, it's always great to hear that everyone wants more Bizaji. So thank you very much both for your time, and we hope to see you again at another Catalyst event in the future.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you.